What secret have you and your sibling managed to keep from your parents? 1. That my sister got arrested in college for stealing hay to spread around a friend's yard as a hearty FU. I had to find an adult who knew how to bail her out because I was only 17, then wait for hours just to drive her drunk self back to her dorm. Her punishment from the judge was to volunteer at a local barn shoveling hay and horse poop. 2. That my little brother didn't break his arm playing baseball. He broke his arm while we were sword fighting with baseball bats. I saw an opening and I took it. 3. I'm an identical twin. They think I'm the other one. 4. I was only about 9 or 10 when my older brother would get home from high school and constantly ring the doorbell for me to open the door. He had his own keys, but he just kept ringing, which annoyed me almost every day. One day, I started yelling at him to open it himself. He kicked the window by the door, it shattered, and a tiny shard cut my foot. No big deal, just a band-aid fix. We called mom and dad, saying someone threw a rock, and my brother even found a rock outside as evidence. Mom and dad called the police when they got home, and there was a full report done. My brother and I have never mentioned the story again. I'm just glad it wasn't some hardcore detective situation where they asked how I injured my foot. 5. For some dumb reason, my parents' high school reunion was in January in Ohio. They decided to get a hotel closer to the event space since we lived in a rural area, leaving the kids alone in the house. Naturally, we threw a giant party. Everything seemed fine around 3 a.m. after we cleaned up, but then we noticed that people had parked on the grass, leaving tire tracks all over the lawn. We were totally screwed. The next morning, we woke up blessed to find a full blanket of snow covering everything. It stayed on the ground long enough that the tracks became completely unnoticeable. My parents still don't know, even 19 years later. 6. When we were in middle and high school, my younger brother used to get in trouble at school a lot. Whenever the school called our house to inform my parents, I would answer the phone and pretend to be my dad. 7. My mom and her new husband took a belated honeymoon trip to New Orleans, where he had lived in his early adult life. While there, they ran into one of his old friends, who had begun selling artwork as a street vendor. My mom secretly bought a beautiful, one-of-a-kind drawing from the vendor as a Christmas gift for her husband. I suggested I could build a frame and mount it while my less crafty brother paid for materials. She agreed, and I began working on the frame. My house was very small, so I set up my craft station in my room, which was tight but workable as long as the door stayed closed. While I was working, my roommate slammed the door open, knocking over an ink bottle from an unrelated project that completely ruined the artwork. My brother and I decided to use clues from my mom's trip photos to track down the vendor, eventually finding him through Facebook. We messaged him, bought a very similar drawing, had it overnighted to me, and I finished the frame on schedule. Mom never found out, and the artwork is now prominently displayed on the wall inside their front door. 8. That my brother's truck wasn't technically broken into. He accidentally locked his keys in the truck while shopping at Goodwill for a tie for a job interview he was on his way to. He immediately called the insurance company, saying his truck had been broken into and asking if it was covered. They said yes, so he took the tire iron out of the truck bed and smashed his own window to get his keys. Insurance fixed the window, and he got the job. 9. Our parents would drop my older brother and me off at church for Sunday school and services each week. As soon as they drove away, he and I would often sneak off to hang out with friends who lived nearby the church instead. They thought we were learning all about their religion, but we were actually learning about girls instead. 10. That my little sister didn't break her arm by accidentally falling off the bunk bed, rather, she broke her arm when we flung her off during a game of King of the Hill. My parents were out at an aerobics class, in a very pre-cell phone era. We just tried to keep her comfortable and waited patiently for them to get home. We finally told them last year, and they thought it was hilarious. We kept that secret for nearly 30 years.